What's up, guys and gals, and welcome back to the next episode, number 2 of our Q&A. I'm excited to be here today. I really am. I'm trying to stay on top of this. I've always been incredibly jealous of people like Jesse Cox, who just like every single week he's able to like knock out Q&As and just like be so consistent about it. And so for me, I want to get into that because I get so many good questions from all of you through my emails and through like the stream questions and just through comments. Now, a caveat before we start, just a little, I always thought a caveat sounded like a dessert. I'm like, I'll have 2 caveats with extra cream. Bring one for the lady as well. I don't know, a caveat always sounds like some kind of like carrot cake to me. That's what I think of in my head. Still a caveat. I had almost 500 questions submitted. Like seriously, there were so many more than I expected. I was like, oh my god. And so I did my best last night. I took like an hour and a half and I just like filtered through. I just went question by question. We're going to try to do like 5 to 10. And so if you know anything about numeracy or like numbers, 5 to 10 is not equal to 500. And so if I don't get your question, leave it for me again down below, and I will try and filter through and get everybody. Once I get one person's question, I'm going to try and keep a list on like a cooldown where for like a couple weeks, I don't pick that person again, just so that it's like fair and we don't get like the same people answering questions every single time. Because if you've ever taken a statistics class or a class on data gathering or data harvesting, which sounds a lot more aggressive, that sounds like something an evil robot would do to like humans. I'm harvesting your datas. But anyways, if you've ever taken a statistics class, you'll know that there's things you have to like. Some people are more likely to answer surveys. And so because you're only answering your questions from people that are more likely to answer surveys, you have like a deviation in your data because you're only getting like that one type of person who's more likely to answer the survey. And so I want to make sure that we get a good sampling of like everybody in the Nerd Castle. So if I get your question today, fantastic. Thank you for submitting an awesome question. If I don't, then, well, put it down below for me, and I'll try and get it next week. The schedule, I think I'm going to try and put these up on Saturdays or Fridays, like I said last time. Then I put it up on a Wednesday because, chaos. They don't control me like that. Chaotic neutral. You never know what I'm going to do. He's crazy! Anyways, it's hot in here right now. I think that's what's making the crazy happen. It's like 110 outside right now. I can't run the air conditioning because it shows up on the video, and so I just got to sit here and be hot with all of you. So hot. Hot damn. Make a dragon want to retire, man. First question, let's get started. I've realized I've been dithering now. Red Menace asks, you said you were a roofer in the past. As somebody who is thinking about getting into it, how would you recommend I or others start? So I'm going to talk about my father's career because my father has been a roofer for 35 years now. I'm going to talk about the way that he got into it. And a lot of people get into roofing just simply based on family. It's a tough business to be in. And I think that if you're vetted into it from a young age and you start, like I started working on roofs when I was 13. My dad would bring me out and he would be like, carry that heavy stuff from here over to here. It'll make my job easier while I do this. And then from there, he'd be like, okay, I want you to lay these down along the red line and just do that. And when I get to that side, it'll make my job easier and do that on top of moving the stuff over to there. And then after that, he'd be like, all right, I want you to nail this down, take the gun, go over there, make sure you're taking care of things. And so when you're vetted in like I was, just from like a young age, you don't realize like how hard and shitty the job is. I think the guys that come out of office jobs at like the age of 25 and try to become a roofer, it's gonna be a rough transition because, I mean, the first episode of Mike Rowe's Dirty Jobs was roofing. And he said it was like the worst job he's ever. It's a tough job. It's a very tough job, especially if you're doing tar mopping. And so first there's a physical requirement. I would say start working out now. Start running, start doing push-ups, start lifting weights. Do whatever you can because like my memories of my old man when I was a little kid, he would get home after a 12-hour day on the roof and then he would still be on the weight bench doing push-ups and all kinds of stuff because it's a really physical job and it just sort of creeps up on you. You always got to be ready. Your cardio's got to be good. You got to have a strong body. You got to have a strong willpower. But if you wanted to get into the business physically, so aside from preparing for getting into the job, get in shape, you know, get yourself nice and yoked out a little bit, go for some runs, make sure your cardio and your muscle work is good. And then once you're ready to do some hard physical labor, what most people do is my father started by apprenticing with a roofer who was getting ready to retire. And so he knew that he had like 10 to 15 years before he was going to retire. And so he took on a whole bunch of apprentices or just like normal roofers. And so you would just get a job for a roofing company and then you would have them teach you how to do the job. And when my dad had been working for him for like 10 or 15 years, my dad and his best friend both had been working there for 10 or 15 years. The guy that ran the company retired. And then with his blessing, my dad and his best friend both started separate companies and they started roofing because they had 10, 15 years of experience at that point. roofing. They started their own contracting firms after that point, because doing just one thing, sometimes you can have like a high season and a low season. Both of them, they went out and they got their general contractor's license so they could do other little jobs too, like insulation and, not shingles, and like gutters and all kinds of stuff like that. Because the more jobs you can do as a roofer that are roof related, the better off you're going to be financially, the more work you're going to have, because you're more variable and ready to go. But aside from the physical requirement, I would say to start out like that, just get a job with a roofing company. Know that it's going to be a really, really hard job. It is a tough job. Like, the burnout rate on roofers is really, really high. I can't tell you how many employees I saw come and go while I worked for my dad, but it's the summer. I think the summer gets rid of them. If you live in a place where it doesn't get that hot, roofing's not terrible. It's still really physical. But I was roofing in a place, my father as well, where it's 110, 115 degrees in the summer, and when you're standing on felt 12 hours a day, the felt is black, in case you didn't know, with heat blazing back up on you, or like blowing insulation with like a full hazmat suit on and a respirator in 115 degree heat in an attic where there's no airflow blowing insulation. Like, it's a job, I'll tell you that much. So just be aware, it's a tough job. It pays very, very well, but if you wanted to get into it, that's how I would recommend it. Just apply for a job with a roofing company, start from the bottom, work hard, learn how the job works, and then as you start to want to go out by yourself and maybe make your own contracting firm, you would want to look into the things in your specific area or principality or state or wherever it is you live, because contracting laws are different in different areas. So, talk to the guy that runs the business if that's what you're interested in after you've been there for a year or two, and just be like, what do I need to do step by step to get into this business? Next up, how do you do your rock voice? It's so funny. How? Well, you tap deep down in. You've got to find a place of darkness and just despair, because that's where all good metal comes from. And then on top of that, you need to go watch a couple good war movies. And then once you're ready to go, it's just, and you just like get it in there right now. But realistically, it's called head voice. You start out by singing falsetto, just like he's just a poor boy, no, and just dick around like that for a while until you get used to controlling your voice at a high octave coming out of like your nasal cavity. You should probably get a vocal teacher though, because there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and I probably do it the wrong way because I've never been instructed. I just kind of like did it until I knew how to do it. And so I got into it by listening to bands like 3 Inches of Blood, King Diamond and stuff like that, where they do a lot of falsetto. But I would talk to, maybe just talk to a vocal instructor and be like, I want to do like that high-pitched heavy metal, just like type shit. And then if you can get that locked down and just make sure that you're doing it in a way that doesn't damage your vocal cords. I can't really tell you how to do it because it's just a thing that I've been doing for so long that I kind of know how to do it. I was in a heavy metal band for a long ass time, and so we thought it was funny. All of us would have competitions to see who could do head voice the best, because why not? Axl Rose and all that shit. Can you show your kittens on the next episode? Yes. So this right here is Ollie, my kitten that I got. Well, actually, he's been here for a couple months now, but he's my little buddy. I lost my little girl a couple months ago, and it was really sort of a heartbreaking time for me and my girlfriend, because the cat, we had only gotten her 2 years ago, and she got stomach cancer, and she passed away. And so we let a couple weeks go by. What are you doing down there, buddy? He's acting a fool right now. He doesn't like being picked up or held, but there he is. You can see what Ollie looks like. I bring him on the streams all the time. But a couple weeks after she died, I'm like, all right, well, it's been feeling dark, it's been feeling musty, and it's just been feeling, because I'm a person that gets very, very attached to my pets. I've always had an easier time dealing with pets than I've had dealing with people. I've always just loved animals. I'm a big animal person. I find all animals to just be fascinating, fun little things. And so it was feeling very dark around the house. It was feeling like there was a definite kind of mugginess and sadness around the house. And so I went and I adopted him. Actually, how I got him, I think that was a question for later on. Yeah, there's a second question down here. So that question came from Jackson Perkins. The head voice question came from Pale Rider. And then there's another question about the kitties. So there's another question about the kitties here from Brian Dollison. Where did you get him from, and how did you come to acquire him? It was actually, I just drove ass deep out into the hood. That was pretty much it. I saw a Craigslist ad because, like I said, it was feeling really, really dark and sort of just meh around the house. And I went and I picked him up. It was a funny story, though, because I walk into the house, and there's 4 buff-ass Mexican dudes in the house with shades on in the house, and they got bandanas on and everything, and they've got their shades on, they've got head bandanas and bandanas right here, all the same colors and shit, and they're like, you want to buy a kitten? And I was like, yeah. Does the kitten come with a kilo or something? This is the most threatening kitten deal I've ever been in right now. But yeah, they were $5, and I was like, okay, here's $5, and they just gave me the kitten. And at that point, there was 6 pit bulls in the backyard, and they hit the glass on the back door, and they're just don't take our kitten. And I was like, ah! And so I just got the hell up out of there. But yeah, it was ass deep in the hood. That's how I got the kitten. He was $5 and I picked him up, and then I had to take him, get him vaccinated and everything like that. It was pretty cool. It's a fun experience. I haven't had a kitten in a really, really long time. I tend to adopt adult cats. Sometimes I adopt elderly cats too, just because they don't get adopted. And I find that actually a lot of the elderly cats are easy. They acclimate really easily. I don't know what else to say about it, but like they're old, and so you can't you can't show them anything they don't already know. And so they're just like, okay, I live in a new place now. Present food for me, and I may allow myself to like you for a little while. And so I adopt old cats a lot of the time too. But after I lost, so basically within a 3-week period, my old cat, who I've had for years and years and years, was diagnosed with heart failure. And so he's still alive, but, you know, the doctor was like, from here on out, it's going to be downhill. Like, he's never going to be better on the concurrent day than he was the day before from here on out. Like, he's kind of on, like, the downward spiral that all cats go through. And then 2 weeks after that, my other cat died outright of stomach cancer. And so it definitely, I'm glad the kitten's around here. He's just kind of, like, brightens up every single room, and I love the little guy tremendously. He's a lot of trouble, like, training him and getting him sort of just, like, used to living here is a bit of a pain in the ass, but still, it's nice. It's nice to have something around the house that is very much super alive and super active all the time to kind of like break us out of the funk after, you know, we had a very kind of like 1-2 punch rapid succession of bad news. And so I'm happy to have him around. What is the scariest game? So this question comes from Zach Capsh. What is the scariest game you ever played? And since I'm going to college, I want to know what the best advice is that you can give to somebody about college. Okay, so the first half of your question, the scariest game I've ever played, hands down, was Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2, I think, is more or less the holotype, or I guess the prototype, or the blueprint that everybody should be following for horror games. It had combat, the control was a little sluggish in that old school way, but at the same time, just the ambiance that that game was able to conjure, it was a horrifying game. Like, there were times where I'd be playing it at like 2 in the morning, and I'd just be like, nope. That's enough video games for today. I can't do this anymore. My heart is thumping. I got like back sweat running down my ass crack. I'm just like, I am nervous right now. And it's a video game. Like, you know it's fantasy. Like, you know it's fake. But for whatever reason, that game got me turned up. It was a little bit wild. So Silent Hill 2 would be, I would say, would be my favorite. And then the one after that, I very much liked Resident Evil 2 as well. Those were the 2 horror games that really like got me into the horror genre. I found them to be a lot of fun. So those would be my 2 recommendations right there. I don't actually play a whole lot of new games, but Alien Isolation was really good too. That was one of the few games I've seen in a while that actually tried to be more scary than jump scary. Like, the whole game was kind of just like this creeping, uncomfortable mass in your stomach that you're just like, oh, I don't feel good about this. Oh God, I'm hiding under a thing and it's right there. No. And so it was a good game. I liked Alien Isolation. I had a lot of fun with that series. It always sort of disappointed me that people like really weren't into that series because I had so much fun with it. It was such a good one. For the second part of your question, Zach, going to college is kind of like one of those transformative experiences, and it kind of depends. For me, I was a late bloomer. I didn't go to college until I was in my late 20s. And so I had gone to community college on and off while I was working at like Geek Squad and like random IT firms. I worked at Blockbuster Video for a long ass time. I was a waiter for a little while and a busser at a pancake house for a little while. And I think that that allowed me to have a little bit better of a life experience before I went into college. And so I tended to avoid a lot of the fraternity partying and a lot of like the on-campus just like hooliganry and things like that happens because I went to the #2 party school in California. I didn't know that when I applied to go there. But when I arrived, like our admissions guy and kind of like our, I guess, what is their job? Well, there's a guy for orientation. There we go. That's the word that I'm trying to think of. The orientation, they were like, this is like a party school, and we don't encourage that behavior. We hope that you stay away from it as much as possible because we want you to graduate and get your credential or be like good at whatever it is that you're doing. So college is going to be a fun experience. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on in college. Don't be nervous about it. I would say to be very open to new experiences. Just like be open to meeting new people, because college was the first time that I ever went to like a school where people were like friendly and people were starting to get rid of like that dickish high school attitude where they're like, you're not one of us, you know. Like in high school, I actually don't think I met more than maybe 1 or 2 people who I didn't like. Just about everybody in my department I remain friends with to this day. I made a lot of friends. Just be open. Go to social things. Like, for example, for my department, we had clubs and things like that. Get involved with clubs. Make the most. You're paying a lot of money, or maybe your parents are paying a lot of money for you to go to college if you're from the United States. If not, either way, going to college is an experience you're never going to get back. And so join clubs, do social stuff, go to like, you know, I used to go to the community keggers every now and again that we'd have. I didn't do it all the time, but like my department would have an endorsed kegger. Like obviously the teachers couldn't say that it was endorsed, but they didn't take the flyers down that were in our classrooms. Like, we had kegers at the beginning and the end of each year to celebrate getting back in, and then at the end of the year, it was to celebrate us passing finals and being done, and then in between there, it was like crunch time. Like, we had good times on weekends sometimes and stuff like that, but just focus on your studies, be social, get out there, and it can be difficult, I know, because I'm an introvert. I'm not an extroverted person. Like, I don't go out and find fun, but when I went to college, I told myself I wasn't going to repeat the way that I behaved in other aspects of my life, being very sort of insular and refusing to kind of like get out of my shell. And so when I was in college, I had a really, really good time with it, and I recommend that you do too. I mean, just be out there, be social, just kind of experience stuff, because it's 4 years of your life. I promise you will never forget. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of struggle. It's a lot of hard work, depending on what department you go into. But I think it's an experience that will help you transition into adulthood properly. It'll lend some structure. Like, you'll learn how to like manage your time, study properly. You'll know how to like, this goes during this block of time, this goes during this block of time, and if if the studying doesn't feel like it's enough, well, maybe I'll stay up late. Like, you learn. I got a work ethic out of it. Like, I've always been a hard worker, but from college I learned a lot about the things that help me succeed on YouTube right now, which is essentially, if something needs to get done, well, it looks like we're staying up late and we're doing it. And so there's a lot of fun, there's a lot of hard work. I would just say be open to experiences. Don't shut them down instantly because they're unfamiliar, because college is definitely a place where I saw some people sort of just like collapse under their newfound freedom and the ability to kind of like do whatever they wanted. And so just be aware that you need to give yourself structure, but at the same time, you need to be open to new experiences. And that's how I feel you'll get the most out of college. The next thing comes from Brian Dollison. I have a metal casting forge, and I'm interested in making you a thingamajig. If you could choose something to have cast in metal, what would you like to have a small replica of? And what metal would you want it in? Aluminum, brass, bronze, copper, iron, or a mix of these? I'm going to go with, copper's going to tarnish. So I like copper a lot. But let's go with bronze. Bronze sounds pretty dope. I don't have anything in bronze. My dad does aluminum forging every now and again. But what do I want to be forged? I don't know. If you could find like some kind of cookie tray. I know a lot of people use cookie trays and stuff for forging that looks like a little castle or something. I'll hang it up in the background on it'll be like right here on the wall if you wanted to send it over. That's a really cool thing to do. I'm filming actually another video log today called Stuff People Send Me, because I've got a big pile of stuff that people have sent me. I don't know if you got that from the name or not, but it's kind of a literalist name, but people send me stuff all the time, and I wait for it to pile up high enough to where I can just like debut it all on the channel. And as of right now, I've got a pretty big pile, so I figure I should probably get that done at this point. The next question. I know you like rap, and this kind of takes up like 2 or 3 questions, but I'll ask anyways. Do you like new rap or old rap? What's your opinion of Kendrick Lamar? Who is your favorite rapper of all time? Okay, so that's kind of like a triple whammy. This is from Potato Peeler, by the way. And the metal casting question, I think, was from... Oh, man, never mind. Brian Dollison did the metal casting forge question. I'll get better at this, I promise. I'm going to get better at this. I arranged my Excel spreadsheet very oddly, and I shouldn't have done it this way. But I learned something. That's the most important part, is that when you do something and it's not very well organized, just make sure you learn to do it better next time. I promise, it's only going to get better from here. Brian Dollison asked about the casting forge. I've got the wrong names on some of these things. So anyways, from Potato Peeler, I do like rap. I find hip-hop to be one of those things that I bloomed into late in life. I used to be a very heavy metaler, and so I didn't really listen to a lot of rap until I got out of that scene. And now I listen to everything from reggae to ska to rap to pop punk to punk rock. Doesn't matter. I think there's something redeemable in all musical genres, and you can find something except for country. There's no excuse for country. But anyways, I like rap. I like old school rap a little bit better. That's not to say that there isn't any good new school rap. There absolutely 100% is. I liked YG's albums. I think YG's killing it pretty hard right now. I really, really, really like stuff by J-Rock. J-Rock goes super hard, where like I don't think I've ever heard an album that J-Rock didn't just absolutely decimate. I like Tech Nine, so I do like new rap. Like new rap, I do have like a new rap section of my hard drive. However, I do like old rap the best. My favorite old rapper is probably Scarface or Willie D, one of the Ghetto Boys, one of the two of them. I like them both very, very much. And so I think Scarface is probably the most underrated rapper of all time. And I think Willie D is probably one of the most underappreciated rappers of all time, where like everything from his delivery to just like how hard his lines go, it's just like, whoo. And so anyways, I could like sit here and just be like Wu-Tang Clan and like list off all the stuff that everybody likes. But I figured I would just get in there and give you my personal favorites. I don't think I've ever heard a Scarface song that I didn't like. And Willie D has some tracks that are just like, whoo, god damn, dude. Like, he nails it sometimes. Like, he really, really sort of just throws down. And people just sort of forgot about Willie D after the 90s. I don't know. So there's my answer. Chase Merrick wants to know, How do you keep your spirits high, and how do you make yourself feel better in general? Any advice for another to make themselves feel better? Well, I don't know if you're dealing with depression or if you just have like low self-esteem, or, you know, what, I don't know what your specific personal problem is, but I can tell you what I do. You know, I get down in the dumps a lot. People don't get to see that on the channel because everything on YouTube is carefully edited and curated, and you make sure that, like, if there's salt in a video, that it, like, goes along with the theme of what's going on. And, like, if you're frustrated with something or you're, like, mad with your progress, you try not to let that show. You really sincerely do, because this is an aspect of show business, in my opinion. And when you're in this position, whether it's radio or TV or YouTube or whatever, it's all about positivity. You're here to make people feel better. And so I tend to repress very, very heavily, which means that while I'm here doing this with all of you, it may seem like I'm very, very happy and I'm animated, but that's because I'm like pushing the sadness and misery down inside, and then I deal with it in my own time. And so in keeping my spirits high, this is going to be something that you have to dig deep and do personally for yourself. I'm naturally a very confident person, and so I don't tend to be upset about things that are having to do with self-confidence, because I've worked a long time on just kind of like having a dominant personality. I've just always been that way. It's not a hard thing for me to do, and so people with dominant personalities typically don't have problems being confident. However, when I'm depressed or when I'm feeling down, I try to think about the things that are positive. I mean, what happens when you go into one of these little downward spirals of depression or whatever else? It's because you're only looking at negative, and when that's in your head, all you can see is negative. And sometimes you just need like that little glint or shine underneath the pile of shit and mud to get you through the day. You just got to realize there's something positive right there. And for me, the one that I always try to go back to is that my uncle died. So here, we'll talk about this real fast. My uncle was a guy who was very much like me. He was the youngest, he was the baby in the family. I'm the oldest. That's not the thing that we have in common. But he was very into D&D. He was very into Magic the Gathering. He was really into like all these various like nerdy things that I was really into. He was unlike my dad and some of my dad's other brothers, who were all very sort of physical, athletic dudes who were always out there doing, you know, sports and things of that nature. My uncle was like me, where he liked to be inside and he liked to play video games and he liked to read fantasy novels and things like that. And he got spinal meningitis. He went to sleep one night and he never woke up. Just died in his sleep when he was 17. And so you might be saying to me right now, Splattercat, this is a depressing ass story. How does this make you feel better? Well, I feel like my uncle was cheated out of his life. I really sincerely do. I think he was cheated. I think his death was unfair. It was, you know, a death that was just one of those things that happens. It's nobody's fault. It's a 1 in a million that somebody gets a disease like that and dies within like 8 hours. And it's just, you know, he rolled the dice and lost right there. But the thing that I take away from my uncle is that I have so much in common with him that I try to live my life in a way where it shines well on his memory. And I know that sounds like a cheesy thing to say, but he got cheated out of his chance to have a life. And every single day, I'm fortunate that I woke up today. Even though sometimes I make jokes like I woke up today and I was like, well, shit, because I woke up. That's the joke, is that, well, damn, I woke up today. I guess I'll do the same thing I do I make that joke all the time because I'm a realist. I can kind of lean towards pessimism, but really when I'm down in the dumps, just depressed and unable to kind of get off the couch, I try to remind myself that a member of my own family who was into the exact same things that I'm into was cheated out of his chance to take those things and run as far as he could with them. And with the way my YouTube channel has been successful, with the way that I've been tremendously fortunate to receive many, many gifts in life that have allowed me to have a job that I enjoy every day, that allow me to go out and make people happy for a living, and also in turn make myself happy, I want to live in a way that commemorates him and also takes the things that he loved and run as far as I can with him, because he didn't get a chance. His run got cut off in an unfair way. And so that's like my biggest one right there. Like, that's the one, you know, like when Peter Pan, he's got to think a happy thought to fly. That's my go-to thought right there that I really hyper focus on when I'm depressed and I'm anxious and I'm just not feeling good. For you to make yourself feel better, I mean, I think you need to lock on to, you know, positivity. I think that's a powerful, powerful thing, and it's a difficult thing to do. And so I know a lot of people are going to hand wave that and be like, that's bullshit advice. But you've got to lock on to positivity. There are things in your life that are positive. The fact that you exist is a positive. You know that between your mother and your father, you coming to exist, the statistical probability of somebody being born with your like perfect genetic makeup, everything that makes you you, is so fundamentally, infinitesimally small that just existing another day is something positive that you can lock into. There will never be another me. because my parents will never exist again after this point. It took the perfect matchup of their DNA to create me, along with my grandparents and their grandparents. I mean, that's a tremendous thing. I don't know. I take solace in just like the scientific sort of just like the scientific chance involved with all of it. The lack of a chance. Just like the fact that I exist here today and I'm able to talk to all of you, and that every decision I've ever made in my life magically landed up here on a coin flip. Like, that's crazy to me. And I don't know. It makes me smile for some reason. I can't explain to you why, but I lock onto little positive things like that that sort of have to do with, you know, my scientific education and things like that. And then, you know, I use my uncle's life and death as sort of like the kicker right there. We're like, no, I can't feel sad today. He didn't get to live a life. So what am I doing feeling sad about having to live one? You know what I mean? I bet if he was still here, or if he could like give a last word, he'd say exact same thing that I would say if I was able to come back from the grave and give you one sentence. Just like, make it worth it, you know? Make it worth it. Just go as hard as you can. Just be happy. Go as hard as you can and try and keep your spirits up. I hope that advice works. Like, I really feel like I give shitty advice when it comes to these sorts of things. But this is really sort of unrehearsed because I wanted it to come off the cuff. I didn't want this entire video to feel like I was just like reading off of a piece of paper. Like, I thought about doing that, taking your questions and just writing down answers to start with and sort of coming up with like these deep thoughts or whatever on paper. But honestly, I'd rather just riff off of it and just give you like realness, because I think that realness is really important. I think that being true to yourself and kind of just, I don't know, allowing people to see the fractures and flaws, I think that's a good thing. I don't know, some people could disagree, but that's how I make myself feel better. I hope that it helps you there. Just seek out the positivity. No matter how dark the situation, there's positivity. Maybe it's that you got to eat today. I had friends that went hungry for days at a time in high school because their parents couldn't afford to feed them. We didn't live in like a rich neighborhood. I had friends that routinely went hungry, and so just the ability to eat a sandwich today, or like eat some cereal, or even ramen, at least you got to put something in your stomach today. That's a positive thing. You got to take the little stuff and then move up to the big things. And so anyways, I hope that helped. I feel like it's bad advice, but maybe that's just me. Our final question is going to come from Cupcake Girl today. What is the weirdest noise you can make? That's actually a really, really easy one. I learned this one when I was in kindergarten. Put your hand right here, and you go, and that's it. It's really, really easy to do if you really want to. I'm pretty sure like every kid made that noise ever, but that's probably the weirdest. Aside from my falsetto voice, that's the best that I've got. So anyways, this was our weekly Q&A. If I didn't want Q&A, I gotta get the enthusiasm back. We were talking about some stuff that, you know, was a little bit low, but I was trying to bring you back up, put some flotation devices on it. I apologize if I messed up the names. I've just realized that my graph with all of your names and your questions is arranged in an illogical way. And so if I messed up anybody's name, if I mispronounced anything, I apologize. I'm speaking from ignorance, and I wish that I could pronounce your name right, but it's too late now. No time machine. So thank you for submitting your questions. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a like down below. Leave me more questions too, because if you don't leave me questions, there's not going to be... Leave me more questions too, because honestly, without those, this series ceases to be. And so I got 500 questions last time. Let's see if we can do 600 this time. Seriously, keep them coming. I had a lot of fun talking about this. It was a blast. And so I will see you all next week. This is our weekly Q&A number 2. I will see you all later. I'm going to go click on some air conditioning and try to stop sweating profusely. Bye, everybody.